Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for Tuesday, October 18th, less than 2 weeks left of this month. You know, I reached out to someone today, and I'm like, holy shit. I mean, I know Boston is supposed to be the city of champions. Now, I lived in West Bridgewater for a part of my life. Then Brockton was always considered the city of champions. Rocky Marciano, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. But the 76ers tip off against the Eastern Conference champs, Boston Celtics. The Philadelphia Phillies, 4 games away from the World Series. And I think I deserve some kind of Christmas card here because I was fired the coach well before some other people started chirping about that. And then it was lightning in the bottle. And then 6-0, fly, Eagles fly. Jalen Hurts, undefeated, number 1 in the NFC, and I don't even think it's close. But why hear it from the kid in Cape Cod? Let's get it from the horse's mouth. The one, the only, Mr. Dan Alexander.
Jeff, I see what you're doing, putting a little juju on the city of brotherly love. I like it. You know, the lead in, I thought we were the city of champions. I know what you're doing, but no one is as strong as the newbie mush. So if I have to use my powers, I'll be talking about how great the Celtics are going to be this year. I'm kidding, man. It is so great to be back with you. Usually we're talking lacrosse, but you know I'm watching every sport. I got my Phillies jersey on. I got my Philly fanatic and gritty, like Pulp Fiction shirt I'm rocking today. I'm all Phillied up, man. So I am happy to be with you, brother. I have missed you, and I loved all these winners I've been getting from ECSI. I can tell you that much.
You know, I don't know where to start. We still do, obviously, have a weekly show for Premier Lacrosse.
Yeah.
Life got busy. Family, you're in my neck of the woods. I'm out west, vice versa.
Yeah.
Season wraps
Crossing trains in the night, man. It's ridiculous.
You're in Vegas. I'm back here. I'm in Vegas. You're over here. But you and I have talked behind the scenes where we're definitely going to get something going back on a weekly basis. And I don't know where to start. So I'm going to start with your Eagles. Mm-hmm. I expected a big year from Jalen. I thought he'd make the next step. A.J. Brown is obviously proven to be a nice investment. You got one of the better tight ends with Goddard, however he is pronounced. He finds pay dirt. Miles Sanders, Penn State alum, has been the real Miles Sanders. Your defense, I mean, Slay the master, whatever you want to call him back there. Give us your your third poll Philly Eagle report.
Yeah, I think you laid it out well before the season. You were saying buy Miles Sanders stock yesterday, because here's the thing: is the strongest part of this team is the summation of the whole parts that you just laid out there. Something that I was very excited about with the Eagles coming in is just the dynamicness that A.J. Brown was going to bring to this offense. So adding a player like A.J. Brown, yes, you're going to get outputs from him. Yes, you're going to get big scoring plays. Yes, you're going to get drive changing, catches and ability to make plays. But what doesn't get factored in is how much better everyone around a player like A.J. Brown is going to get. The first week, the sky is falling. All they did was throw the ball to A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith isn't going to get any more catches this year. They might as well trade him. Devontae Smith has gotten exceedingly better because of what A.J. Brown does. This team now can take the top off, so you have to play them deep. You throw two safeties over the top, and then what are they going to do? They're going to run the ball down your throat. You load the box, all right, that's fine. They'll take Dallas Goedert. They'll chip your linebacker that you're trying to blitz. They'll put him right behind it, find the soft spot of the zone. So this team has just become insanely tough to defend, and that's without even mentioning what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. Typically, if you don't have a pass rush from the Philadelphia Eagles, you're getting bupkis from the defense. This secondary, Jeff, with Darius Slay, CJ Gardner, even Marcus Epps having a stepped-up year, Avonte Maddox in the slot, we have not had, and yes, I say we, because I am an Eagles season ticket holder. I pay their damn salaries. I can say we have not had a secondary like this since the Brian Dawkins and Troy Vincent and, back end with Asante Samuel. I would argue that this potential unit could be even better talent-wise than that unit. And I know people will say right away, oh, well, Dawkins was the anchor of that. You have four dudes over the top that can make plays, and that's helping out the defensive line who, outside of the game where they just absolutely destroyed Carson Wentz, they've left a little bit to be desired up there on the front four. So the back end finally bailing out the front four when it had been the opposite way around. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of success from these Eagles, because teams aren't just able to pass and destroy them. But that's not to say they still don't have stuff to work on going into the bye, Jeff.
I have to laugh. I watched the Eagles-Minnesota game on Monday night. I'm a big Justin Jefferson owner in fantasy. I watched
him.
Just blanket him, shut him right down. And so where I'm going to go with this, Newbie, is watching the game Sunday. Cooper Rush, for some reason, his two turnovers, both was on the Slay side, trying to force the ball to Gallup. One an interception, one a tip, where CeeDee Lamb is your go-to guy. He's the guy that's going to take the ball over the top. Yet he kept forcing it to Slay. Now, listen, Dallas is fortunate. Cooper Rush came in and sturdied the ship. 4-2, the season could have been lost. Now, I don't understand people not watching here, Newbie. I mean, why are you even going to Slay side?
I don't get it, because if you just look at what he's done on the year, I mean, he's stacked up tackles even at the cornerback position. He's had multiple turnovers, so it's funny, they always do these player introductions, and they have now stopped introducing him as Darius Slay, and the announcer comes on and says, "Big play Slay," and that was always his nickname in Detroit. Took him a while to find it. He had a big fumble return last year. That was really the big play for Darius Slay, but he has earned that big play Slay nickname, because it's not just the interceptions, those field flipping plays. It's the positioning that he has. It's holding a player like Justin Jefferson, who for all accounts, I think we would both agree is the best and most talented wide receiver in the NFL right now. And Darius Slay makes him look like Nelson Aguilar for 4 quarters. So the ability to take players out of their game and still give enough cushion, because as you're saying, they're still throwing to his side. They're not like, putting him like it's Revis Island where, we're not even going to look that way. Part of that's because on the other side, it's James Bradbury, who he's had his fair share of big plays himself, but he has this coverage style where, and it's almost across the whole entire secondary, and I really like it, and it could potentially come back to bite him against some, more sure-handed wide receivers, or when they have a wide receiver core they're going against, but they give a little bit. So they're playing off about 3 yards, and then it's this closing speed that all of them possess that allows them to break up passes. So in the NFL, you're very rarely going to have those huge plays where you have a guy running wide open. The only time that it happens is on blown coverage. What you are going to see is a little window where the 32 best players in the world, who's a starting quarterback in the NFL, can fit a ball into a little tight 2-yard window. However, the speed and closing speed this Eagles secondary has shown so far this year makes these quarterbacks think there's that little window that they're able to use their strong arm to rifle it in. Bang, the ball gets smacked down, or bang, the ball gets bounced up, and then it's tip drill time and they're turning it over. So yes, the offense is always going to be the biggest story, but I would argue the biggest part of this Eagles success has been their defense, because one of the things they need to figure out, Jeff, is what the hell are they doing coming out of halftime? I don't know if they're playing ping pong in the locker room. I don't know if they're not making any adjustments in the locker. Like, I don't know what they're doing at halftime. The problem is they come out and they blow teams out in the second quarter, and then the second half starts and they forget how to play football. Then the teams start, sliding back into the game, or the defense holds up their end of the bargain. They still end up pitching a shutout, but the offense can't move the ball. They haven't yet this year put together 4 quarters, and I hope that's something they're going to work in the bye week, because I don't know what that answer is. And when you're playing a better team, if Dak Prescott was the quarterback in that game, I don't know if it doesn't get a little bit more dicey at the end of the game. You know what I mean? So they need to figure out that second half scoring, but because of how good the defense has been playing, they've been able to just rest on their laurels at halftime and cruise their way to a 6-0 start to the year.
I have brought up, we do a show every Tuesday and Thursday night, me, the mayor of Vegas, Mr. Sharapan, and Brady Tinker, Sportsbook Confessions. And I each week have said since week 2, Bills versus Eagles, and I've given a line 4.5. It was 5. I've brought it down to as low as 3.5, under over of about 54.5.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere in that. And I keep telling those guys, 4 out of the 6 games, Buffalo has shut out the opponent in the second half.
Great point.
And, so it's funny. Your best quarter is the second quarter. You're doing laps around the NFL. And I don't want to say it's getting complacent, because your defense is holding up, as you said, its end of the bargain. Very surprised that Dallas chipped away. I'm more curious offensively. Is it almost, could I say, Jalen taking a foot off the gas pedal?
I think it has a little bit more, honestly, to do with the play calling, to be honest with you. Like it just kind of seems like there's this big creativity, and they're catching defenses guessing. So this is why I think it's a little bit more of a lack of adjustment on the Eagles' part, because I think they're coming into the second half saying, hey, let's just keep doing what worked. You know what I mean? Like, let's just keep running the ball, or, let's just keep trying to force this ball to X, Y, and Z. Whereas in the NFL, you have to make adjustments at halftime. So it almost seems to me like this Eagles team isn't making adjustments while other teams are making adjustments at half. And that's why they're still trying to do what worked early on in the game. And it's just not, it's not working when these NFL head coaches and NFL defensive coordinators are the ones who are making these adjustments. And the Eagles, it seems like they aren't. So I don't think it's a Jalen Hurts thing. Honestly, I think it's Eagles have to come with a second half game plan, maybe even before the game starts. Maybe they say, hey, let's try this in the first half, and then we're gonna pivot to this in the second half, because it just seems like they become ultimately easier to defend. And that shouldn't happen with the dynamic offense that they have. There shouldn't be any reason why, if it was Miles Sanders running down their throat in the first half, why it shouldn't be. Now they're going to stack the box. Let's start airing out the ball a little bit more, because they finally have the personnel to do that. You know what I mean? It's not only X, Y, or Z. They can do X, Y, and Z all at once. And I think once they start getting that together, they're going to be a very tough team to beat. And also, Jeff, let's be real. Their schedule isn't getting any tougher. The knock on the Eagles all year is going to be the same knock as when you have a team who has a 4th place schedule. Well, who have they played? Well, in the NFL, anybody can beat anybody. I mean, didn't we just see the Jets beat the brakes off of Green Bay? Haven't we seen Geno Smith talk himself into, I say tongue-in-cheek, the MVP conversation? Nobody had that on their NFL bingo card, Jeff. So the Eagles, their schedule isn't going to get any tougher. They come out of the bye, and they're going to be facing off against a Steelers team who knows who's playing quarterback for them. Then they're going to be playing a Titans team. They have Green Bay on the stretch. They still have 2 games against the Giants, who, let's give credit where credit's due, Jeff. Giants are looking for real. Dable looking like once he gets talent, that's going to be a problem. So you got Texans in week 9 on Thursday Night Football, a.k.a. the worst product the NFL has ever put out. Dear God, what is happening with Thursday Night Football? I'd rather watch paint dry sometimes, Jeff. So I'm looking at this schedule, and if people are looking, when will we finally see when the Eagles will be tested? Even in the playoffs, who scares you in the NFC that they haven't beat already or they're not going to play? Vikings probably the second best team in the NFC, right? They beat the brakes off of them.
I'll close the Eagles with this. You got to be happier than a pig in doo-doo. Father Time is caught up to Green Bay. It caught up to the Bucks. You've already beaten the Vikings. There's only one team that you should fear. They're banged up, but they got the pedigree. They have the coaching staff. They have the weapons, and that would be the 49ers. Now, you get them healthy, and they can win on the road. They got a running game. I say this tongue-in-cheek because
I agree.
The Rams could get back into this play one move. If they get CMC supposedly on the blocks, they can't run the ball. So if the 49ers ever got CMC, that's a hell of a running game to try.
Yeah, that's something to track. Where's that landing spot for Christian McCaffrey, if there is one? Because yikes. Yeah, I'm just looking at these stats for the Rams. If they have a running back like that, that's going to alleviate, because Matt Stafford doesn't look right. You know what I mean? Like, I still think there's something wrong with that arm. I think there was also a little bit of that hangover too, but the Rams, I haven't even heard that kind of floated as a spot, but that makes sense because the Rams too have told you we'll pay for championships. Like we'll pay the premium to do it. We don't care. We'll move the X's and the O's around. We'll move some dollar signs, some decimal points. God damn, Jeff, I wasn't even thinking about that. Now you got to be sweating the Rams. I thought I was able to write them off. They had them to the 49ers. Jimmy G actually gets to learn the playbook after a couple weeks here. Yeah, I think the NFC is far from wrapped up, and the ultimate equalizer that's always looming in the NFL, and that is injuries. You never know when the injury bug is going to bite you. So I'm not one of those people that's ready to anoint this Eagles team. I think there's a lot good that we have seen with them. Don't get me wrong, but they have a lot that they have to work on too. That second half scoring, probably the one that looms the largest, but this team is far from being a complete team just yet. Pretty good to be talking about a complete team who is 6-0. But if they had a first place schedule, Jeff, I think they're probably more like a 4-2 team, potentially even a 3-3 team. So yes, I love my Birds, but I also look at them through the glass of realism. I'm a better 2. I'm a better first. I bet with my head, not with my heart. I will say I've only gotten one Eagles game wrong this year. I have cashed on every single Eagles game, betting on them, betting against them. The one I didn't get was I didn't realize Carson Wentz sucked that bad. I thought the Commanders were going to give him a game, Jeff. That one wasn't right even a little bit. But other than that, been nailing these Birds. Told people lay it at 8.5 when they were playing the Dallas Cowboys. So, if you want some good Birds tips, I eat, sleep, I breathe it. Just hit me with a follow, and I'm only a tweet away.
All right, so I got to go back to the wild card. Actually, I'll go back to regular season. I was one of the ringleaders, the conductors that the Phillies needed a change. They got the change. Even second half of the year. I like to say the Phillies team is this. It has 2 horses. It has no back end, and it's got a defense of a Friday night softball team. And offensively, they're great, but you could see them putting stuff together. Bring on the Cards. Game 1, top of the 9th. Cardinals were minus 2,000. I left the office and I came back and it was 6-2. And I had to rewind it. What did I miss? From there, bring on the Braves. You stole one in Atlanta. You just ripped the heart rate out of them. I've never seen Acuna in a must-win situation strike out 3 times, never even backed up the center fielder for the in-the-park homer by JT Realmuto. Then on a base hit, bobbled the ball. He'd already had Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic all locked in. You got the Padres. Padres opened up minus 130. Your Phillies plus 110. Now it's about 125 to plus 105. Both teams have momentum. Here's how I see it. I was surprised you moved Wheeler up. I thought you're going to go Suarez, Wheeler, Nola back home. You're moving Wheeler up tonight against Darvish. I haven't done the release. You haven't got the text or the email yet. I will tell you, I'll tip my hand a little. I lean the Phillies in the series. I in playoff baseball, especially at this point, the pitchers on their off days come get us 3, 4, 5 outs. The back end worries me to shit.
Yeah.
But you guys are doing it. Give us some Philly talk.
Well, here's the thing. You mentioned that 9th inning against the Cards. If the pitcher, and his name's escaping me right now, if he doesn't plunk the batter and hit him, the Phillies probably aren't here right now. The Phillies probably end up getting swept by the Cards because that little bit was the start of the streak. What do we know about this Phillies team other than holy shit, please don't put the bullpen in the game? We know that they are insanely streaking both on the mound and at the batter's box as well. So what is encouraging is they're on the streak up right now, but we've seen them go ice cold. And could that happen here tonight against you, Darvish? Sure, maybe, but this tells me that manager of the Phils, Robbie, Philly Rob is what we call him. Him moving up Wheeler tells me he thinks they can win this game. Like, and obviously you hope that your manager thinks you can win every game, but you know how baseball is in a 7-game series. You pick your spots. He's saying put Wheeler on the mound because, in my opinion, Wheeler is their true ace. I know that everybody's still enamored with Nola, but I've been banging the Wheeler drum since they brought him in here that this guy has the stuff. So moving him up and not going with Suarez says, hey, we're not going to try and give the Padres a little bit of momentum. I think, probably the play in this one, and I want to get your thoughts, is first 5 under. I mean, who's hitting you, Darvish, and who's hitting Zach Wheeler right here? And I know that the bats have been hot, but the bats have come alive late, in 6th innings, in 7th innings, in later on in the game. So maybe that's just me looking at the 2 pitchers who are going to be on the mound and doing the square duct tape shoe play. Oh, it's you. Oh, it's Zach. It's got to go under. But I think both of these guys are going to be stacking up Ks because maybe the batter's coming in, forcing a little bit here early. So if I was betting one thing in this game, it would be probably that first 5 under. I kind of like Zach Wheeler over on those 4.5 Ks, but at minus 145, once he gets 4, I'm going to be kicking myself because I'm going to be like, you beat me by the hook again, Wheeler. God damn it. So I don't know. Those are 2 plays that I'm looking at tonight. I think they're a live dog here, but I think they also got a tough draw with the Padres because I think the Padres counter really well what the Phillies do well. And that's just being able to stay around, get guys on base, and then once you get a pitcher in a bad spot, that's when the hot bats will come up. And that's what the Phillies do really well, is at least staying around, staying ready, staying loose. And I think the Padres kind of have that too with their batting lineup. So your thoughts on that first 5 under, your thoughts on just kind of this pitcher duel as well. What are you thinking?
Well, I've talked to my Padre people, and I've talked to them at length about their playoff run. And I said this before the playoffs started. You were going to go as far as Josh Hader took you.
Great point.
And the reemergence of Josh, he's a lefty.
Yeah.
He's going to neutralize Schwarber. He's going to neutralize Harper.
Yeah,
Again,
especially Harper. I don't know if Harper's hit a lefty yet this series. I mean, this entire playoffs.
So I have mixed emotions. I think you could jump on Darvish early with a Schwarber homer, maybe with a Harper homer, get the lefty bats going. But I'm also playing devil's advocate here where you got a short price on Darvish opening game, right? You still like the Phillies' chances. Instead of jumping on the plus 105 in the series tonight, sit back, enjoy the game. If San Diego wins game 1, you can get your Phillies at a plus 185, 190 in the series. Go get him. Does he move Nola up, or is he going to go Suarez there?
I mean, it's looking like against Snell, if that's who they're going to be going with, which is projected, which is going to be a lefty, it looks like they're going Nola on Wednesday. So I don't know. Then maybe it is not like they're waving the white flag or anything like that, but maybe it is just, hey, let's see if we can steal one with Wheeler, and then they go all in on this game with Nola on Wednesday. I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, you're my baseball guy, Jeff, through and through. Full disclosure, I love all sports, but I'll go to Jeff every single time and twice on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It don't matter when. He's my baseball guy. So hearing you say that worries me here a little bit. I've watched every single inning of these Phillies playoffs. It's the most baseball I've watched all year long. So a true homer hopping in when they're hot. But what I've seen, I've at least paid attention to the team all year long. You know what I mean? And that's why I think your play on waiting on the series price is a great one, because what are you going to lose? What if the Phillies win this first game? They'll be minus 105 for this series, minus 110, because they're not going to give you a crazy plus price on San Diego, even if they steal this game, right? So why not? You think so?
They'll give you, if Phillies win this first game, they'll probably be minus 180 to win the series.
Really?
They're going to give you the Padres probably at around a plus 140. Sure.
So this game. That tells me, if you really think the price is going to be able to move that much, that tells me this really is like a sellout game for the Phillies. Like they're going to be going all in on this game. If you could affect a series price that much, if you could affect the tenor of a series just on an opening game, because I would get that kind of move of, flipping the whole entire favorite and then having you have a great take back on San Diego if this was a 5-game series. You know what I mean? I think the fact that it's a 7-game series, I would feel like maybe the odds makers would be a little bit more tentative to that, especially, getting the games at home that could be potential closeout games for San Diego if they're able to steal one. But I don't know, Jeff, you're starting to get me a little excited about my Phils. I was waiting with bated breath coming in here, but they steal this game tonight. I don't know. I might be dancing down Broad Street.
Well, and you brought up a good point. I'll say this. In the 5-game series, when you took the first game against the Braves closed at minus 230 against the Phillies. You could have got the Braves plus 120 after game 1. Right then told me this. The Phillies are winning the series. The Phillies are winning the series.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yeah.
So if you like the Phillies to win this series and you're unsure of game 1,
get it now.
Just pass on game 1. You still can do your props. You can just sprinkle a little something if you want a little action on Zach Wheeler. But what's plus 105, especially if they lose the game, you can get Zach Wheeler at that price tonight and wait on the series.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, that's why you're my baseball guy right there. See, other people are playing chess. This dude's playing checkers. Let's go, Jeff. I love that, man.
We're going to wrap up here. I'm high above courtside. Opening night.
I don't like that background. I like the lacrosse background a lot better, I will say.
Celtics, Philly. I think the line's down to like 2.5. Quickly, a outlook. How's the buzz? Embiid, Harden. You guys were close last year. We've been saying this now for a while. Listen, I'll tell you right now. I think it's the Bucks team in the AFC in the East this year. I don't know. Brooklyn, obviously, a wild card. We'll see what Ben Simmons, KD, and Kyrie bring. You guys, especially, I think you're a wild card. Give us your thoughts about the 76ers.
Yeah, we'll see. I want to see how they look on the court tonight, right? Because they said all the right things in their preseason press conference. We've been working on this. We've been doing that. Show me, if you can go on the road and beat a Celtics team that has, some controversy around them, some stress that's going on in the locker room because of, the unfortunate circumstances that happened with Ime and Udoka. So I think that the spot really sets up for Philly right now because it's just they're coming in. Boston has some distractions during the offseason. All Philly's been thinking about all offseason is how do we not look like jackasses at the end of the year again? So I think ultimately motivated. They know that a win against Boston just to start off the year would go a long way. But this is also a marathon, Jeff. If whoever wins here tonight, it doesn't mean that they're going to be, oh my God, they're Eastern Conference. It doesn't matter. The Boston Celtics could win this game by 40, and it wouldn't change my outlook on the Sixers this season. The Philadelphia Flyers, the Philadelphia 76ers could win this game by 40, and I would just be saying, all right, still, congrats, you got Boston in a really good spot for Philly. What I will say, Jeff, shocker, this line has bounced all over the place. I mean, Jesus, we had this all the way down to 2.5 right before you and I were coming on. I think that had to do with the Boston injury report, getting back Smart, getting back some of these players and that they're going to be in full health. Think people got excited about that, but it's back at these sharp shops to, 3.5. So that injury report really helping out Boston there. It's bounced up and down. 52% of the money on Philadelphia, yet the line keeps going towards Boston. So Price says Boston, protects the home court, but you know me. Give me the Sixers plus 3.5. Let's go, Jeff. I had to do it and had to bet them. I'm taking that 3.5 all day long. I thought I was going to have some nice closing line. I placed 3.5 a week ago. I saw 2.5 this morning. I was like, going to get my CLV trophy ready to go, baby. It's back to 3.5. No closing line value for me, but let's just hope for a good game tonight. Our man Carl Haskell is going to be in the house, in the Garden. He's going to the game. So hopefully I use those newbie mush powers and they rub off on my man CH and the Sixers can get a dub, but I'm taking the 3.5. I think it could be a 1-score game for sure.
Newbie, tell them everyone where they can find you. Obviously, the scroll has been going the whole time. I got your Twitter handle up there at Newbie Talks, at Wager Talk, Bet on Lacrosse. Tell everyone what you're doing this fall and where they can find all your work.
Yeah, I mentioned my guy, Carl Haskell. That's the Cash Considerations podcast with the mayor of Las Vegas, the real Vegas Dave. No, not that Vegas Dave. Dave Sharapan produced the show, Cash Considerations, alongside those guys. It's a great listen, great commute listen, about an hour and a half. Take the over, sometimes 2 hours long on the Cash Consideration show, but we talk life, we talk gambling, and we give you great winners. I think I went 6-2 in the NFL picks this week, so leading the pack after another good week for Newbie. I've been seeing it really nice in the NFL, nice in basketball as well during the preseason, so hopefully that gets to continue, but follow me at Newbie Talks. You'll find all of that there. You can check out my work with Wager Talk. I host a show called Sports Memo Today. I used to host a show, Asian Baseball Today, but KBO playoffs are going on, so no more Asian baseball talk. So you can find me on Sports Memo Today, always putting out content. Just follow me, Newbie Talks. And Jeff, so good to be back with you, brother. Only 3 minutes over from our hard stop. We did pretty damn good on our first time back.
I can't thank you enough. I will definitely circle the wagons. We will definitely get back to a weekly Philly talk, and we're going to start hitting some sports. We'll stay away from the Flyers till they get hot, and we want you to enjoy the baseball series. It's been a hell of a run. Best of luck, obviously, with the Eagles. It's a bye week, so you're still 6-0, and you'll be 6-0. And good luck with the Sixers tonight. How's that, Newbie?
Appreciate it, man. And I did the Homer Philadelphia parlay. So if you got jacked up about Philly sports during our little section now, Philadelphia Flyers plus the 1.5. Nobody's betting them tonight. Take the Sixers money line. Take the Phillies money line plus 1,500. Why the hell not? It's all Philly tonight, Jeff. Let's go.
Ring the bell, brother. Ring the bell.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon, my brother. You take care. The one and only Mr. Dan Alexander, live from Philly. I mean, geez, we were the city of champions. We're passing the torch over to Philly as we speak. And I just love Dan to death. I can't thank him enough for coming on here. And on quick notice. And part 2 here, our weekly trip out west. We head over to Ron, talking some college football, talking some NFL. The coaching has been hilarious. Ron has a lot to talk about there. We highlighted some big games in college last week. I talked to Ron, and anyone that wanted to listen, if you like Tennessee to win outright, to grab Mr. Hooker at 14-1 to win the Heisman, now second favorite at plus 440. I wouldn't mind his thoughts there. But without further ado, let's bring him up, the one and only Mr. Ron from Ace Sports.
Hi, Jeff.
Afternoon, Ron. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Listened to a part of your last interview. So you're Mr. Baseball, football, and basketball today with a little hockey sprinkled in. Where else can you get 4 sports in one show?
You can't anywhere. I'm telling you, I don't know where these big markets are that they haven't been pounding the door, Ron. Sooner or later, we'll be with them on Sports Grid or something like that. How's that?
That sounds great.
A crazy, crazy weekend in college sports, in the NFL. We talked about some of the headliners in college, the Alabama-Tennessee game. I don't like to bring refs into play, especially on a Bama side, where Bama usually gets the calls. Late call against them, up 7, about to probably go up 10 or 14 for the cover as well. Tennessee not only covers the game, wins the game there. I really love that Utah-USC game. And I called the track meet early in the week. I was like 70, 80 points. Utah ties it up, goes for 2 with 40 seconds left. A bunch of other big games. Give us your weekend, I guess, review from your eyes.
Well, we saw a lot of shuffling in college. We certainly saw in these undefeated matchups, and Utah not undefeated with 1 loss, but the other ones, Oklahoma State, TCU, Alabama, Tennessee, a lot of good games and a lot of high-scoring games. If you look at these matchups in particular, the overs went sky high in these games. Even the Penn State-Michigan game, which was very one-sided, had a lot of points scored in that one as Michigan took care of business. Very impressed with the way when they're favored by, let's say, a touchdown or more, they just take care of business each and every week. So the big question is, my take at the end of the last show that we did together was, how would these teams do the following week? You look at Tennessee and Alabama, they poured their hearts into that game all 60 minutes. TCU, Oklahoma State, they went more than 60 minutes. They went overtime. Michigan, not so much, but obviously USC and Utah went down to the final 2-point conversion. So that's a lot of energy exposed this past week. I'm really curious as to how these teams are going to bounce back this week.
And you talked about that, and it really stuck up here. It's not what you do with a 5-0 record, it's what you do after that record. And a team sliding Minnesota, who has now lost 2 in a row, a Penn State team that played their heart out and was their national championship, their Final Four was right in front of them,
right.
Gets run over in the big house. Now they come back home. Penn State hosts Minnesota. I saw a number of 4.5 as an opener. I'm not sure if I remember correctly when I talked to Dave Sharapan. I think it's the whiteout game. Don't quote me on that. What's your initial thought with the opening number, and what do you expect? Is Penn State going to be able to flip that switch, or do you look at a team of Minnesota who we had kind of moving in the right direction, now 2 losses in a row?
Well, for Penn State, unfortunately for them, 1 loss is usually followed by a second loss. It's been almost like clockwork that a 4-1, 5, when they go 4-0, lose, 5-0, lose, 6-0, lose, it's followed by another loss. And so I'm not really looking for Penn State to rebound for a couple of the reasons that you mentioned in terms of the fact that their hopes were dashed. They were exposed. The one thing we have to look at for Minnesota, though, is their quarterback was knocked out of that game in the 4th quarter. So we don't know if he's going to play. Is he the greatest quarterback of all time? Not necessarily, but he's with a coordinator that he trusts, who also was the coordinator at Minnesota. Then he went to Penn State. Now he's back to Minnesota. So it's kind of an interesting storyline going on there. But he's improved this year. And if he doesn't go, that's going to hurt Minnesota a little bit. But I don't expect big things from Penn State in this game.
If I'm looking down the board here, I'm just trying to. I mean, last weekend's schedule was just off the charts. There's no way to compare last week's to this week's. An undefeated Syracuse team at Clemson, do they get exposed this week?
You know, it's interesting because I usually look at how these teams control the line of scrimmage. Syracuse has a workhorse running back, and he gutted it out last week. He was not healthy, but he stayed in there. He gutted it out. Syracuse got that crazy win last week against North Carolina State. It went to 3 or 4 overtimes. Where Clemson's edge is in this game, however, is in the pass game. I think what you're going to find is if Clemson wins this game, and they're expected to, they're a double-digit favorite. I think Syracuse pass D is their weakness. They've handled the run pretty well. I know Clemson has a good running back in Shipley, but I expect Clemson to win the pass battle in this game. That's probably what I see as the difference in this game.
I'm going to go right down here. I got a couple highlighted. I'm very surprised at this number, especially after a week off. Oregon at now 6.5 in some spots against an undefeated UCLA team. I don't know what your power rankings have. That number to me seems high, which when I got my spider senses up, they're baiting you to take the undefeated UCLA team here.
Yeah, the number's tad high. I would have made it 4.5 based strictly on power ratings. It's interesting you mentioned power ratings. I have both Utah and USC rated above these two. So the winner of this game will probably join them in that mix. It's an important game. A lot of situational factors, in my opinion, favor Oregon, including strength of schedule and including, I think the rest week will be better for them. I think they have more of a defense than UCLA does. I think UCLA's defense might get exposed. My take is to look Oregon or no one in this particular game. The metrics tell me Oregon.
This line to me surprised the hell out of me. Texas at Oklahoma State, you talked about overtime. I loved Oklahoma State last week. I thought that price was, especially in the morning, I woke up and went from 3.5 to 5 for a minute. It dropped down to 4.5. I thought Okie State was going to win that game. They should have won that game. It goes to overtime. They lose by 3. A number opened at 3.5. Now 6.5, soon to be 7. What the hell's going on in Texas?
You know, I knew you were going to bring up this game. So this is one for the thumb. See this thumb? 1, 2, 3, 4. You've now made it 5. That's 5 people who told me that line is off. And that line is off. And there's no way, based on power ratings, that Texas should be that big of a favorite against Oklahoma State. And now you're the 5th person who's either texted me or sent me a DM. It's amazing. But with all that being said, Oklahoma State's first loss was an overtime loss. They have to get right back up, and compete again. They're in a really poor situation, both historically from a team standpoint and historically from a general situational standpoint. And it's got me in a dilemma because when I have power ratings that are off by 3.5 or more points, the dogs usually convert 56.5% of the time. To be exact, rolling 5-year average, 56.7% of the time, which would tell me that's a live number for Oklahoma State. But all the other situations that I have are like 65% of the time favoring Texas. I like Texas, but I probably am going to have to be a bystander because I think the line is out of, I can maneuver my power ratings all I want, but I can't get to this number.
Mississippi State, Alabama off a loss. Now they got a sheet. They can't lose anymore. They got to get to the SEC final against Georgia. Most likely they have to beat Georgia because I don't think a 2-loss Alabama team is going to get in. a Mississippi State team that lays an egg that it wasn't one of Leach's best performances. 21.5, now 21.
Another dilemma game for me because there's so many factors going on in this game. For Alabama, you laid it out perfectly. They still have a path for the national title. In the past, one loss would have killed them. Nick Saban is 4 out of 14, 4-10 against the spread after a loss like this. So, that's not good. However, we've seen teams rebound and get back into title games after their initial loss because of the rules with the 14 playoffs. You mentioned Mississippi State laid an egg last week. Not a surprise to me, luckily, because Kentucky has had their number for 2 years running. They just can't move down the field with that offense, the quick strike, little dink and dunk offense. Kentucky controls that very nicely. And once their quarterback was announced in, that was just a great spot for Kentucky. So Mississippi State has a really good defense, but they're going against a really good offense. You see, where they passed for 400 something, 500 yards. It was incredible. And I think Alabama matches up very well against Mississippi State. I tend to think the points are too high in this particular game. I have to do a deeper dive. I'd like to see Leach be, if you can believe it or not, be more creative offensively to take advantage of Alabama's problems. You were right about the Tennessee quarterback. He had a masterful game. He put himself not only in the Heisman race, but he put himself in the NFL, day 2 consideration for sure, if not day 1. So that's an impressive performance. I just don't know if Mississippi State can go ahead and control Alabama's offense. And looking at the game, the first run through, Mississippi State, I think the points are just a little too high.
I do agree with you there as well there. Next game kind of intrigues me here. I haven't done well other than opening day. We went against LSU with FSU. I thought it was a perfect spot for LSU last week against Florida. All of a sudden, it was Joe Burrow on the field with Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham. The offense cranks up. Surprising here to me. Now, I'm anxious to hear you, an undefeated Ole Miss team who technically was 1.5-point favorites. That has flipped now to, I'll say, consensus LSU -2.
Yeah, this is a very interesting SEC game because it really matters. LSU has been improving. There's no question that they could have had a couple of losses early, or they did. That Florida State game was crazy, but they came back from 20 points down, I think it was there, and they had another one where they came back. So they're going to play all 60 minutes, and you could see the team get a little bit better. Mississippi hasn't done anything wrong, really. You have to worry. Being out in Southern California, I know their quarterback, Dart, if he's put in uncomfortable situations, he will turn the ball over. But if you think turnovers are relatively random and we have an equal turnover thing, I think that Mississippi runs on LSU. Mississippi has 2 really outstanding running backs. I see this as a game that LSU has to play a little bit over their heads, or Mississippi has to help them with turnovers. I think Mississippi gets the edge, and I will investigate that line move. I'm going to do a little research on that. I found that just a tad surprising. It's not surprising to me that the line, according to my power rating, is pick 'em. I'm just surprised that LSU got some early love.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some information here. Jack Beck, wide receiver, questionable, and then Armani Goodwin, also questionable. So there's really not a lot of notes I see right now on that game. So that surprised me there. The last one that I'm going to ask you, then I'll flip the switch over you. Kansas at Baylor. Baylor 8.5 now down to 7.5. 9 at Chris currently. Kansas was an amazing story. Is it time now to start backing off, or do they have a second gear in them, or are they overmatched in this game?
I've loved the Kansas story, and they're playing, and they have just a wonderful head coach, and they're doing a lot of things right. This is not a good situational game for them. If Kansas again keeps it within the spread, if they lose by 3, 4, 5, 7 points, that's just a testament to their coach. They just went through some really tough games. Historically, they don't play well at Baylor. Historically, they don't play well after meeting Oklahoma. So you've got the two negatives there. You've got Baylor with a couple of extra days rest, which for this coaching staff, integrating some new people, they lost a lot of people to the NFL, and getting a couple of extra days now. This shapes up on paper to me, if Baylor can stop Kansas' run game, it shapes up as a double-digit win for Baylor. I mean, this really could be a mismatch. It's just not well placed in the schedule for Kansas. I've just been amazed with the Kansas story. I'm not ruling anything out because Kansas has had a magical year thus far. But at some point, that rubber band's got to break just for a little bit, and this might be the game that breaks it.
I went through the schedule kind of quick. I'm going to throw the pigskin over to you. Am I missing a couple big games? Is there anything that, Ron, that you've captured early in the week? I know our show's on Tuesday. I understand you got plenty of work ahead of you, a lot of shows with Vegas Chris and some other people. What have you highlighted so far?
Well, I wish the San Francisco would field more than half their team, because that Kansas City San Francisco game, should be fantastic. But San Francisco was without 5 starters last week. They may be without 7 this week on defense alone. And so, unfortunately, that's a little bit of a down one. I don't know that there's a compelling matchup this week. There's an important matchup with Indianapolis and Tennessee, and I haven't done as deep a dive as I want to in that particular game. But offhand, I would say that a rested Tennessee team would probably get my edge. I'm looking at the schedule as well. Not necessarily a compelling game. There's a lot of interesting storylines as far as quarterbacks coming back into action. Does Jameis Winston come back? Does Tua come back? Does Dak Prescott come back? But I don't have a game that, it's off the charts, that is going to be unbelievable.
I'm going to take you back to Sunday. NFL, not for long. I've talked to a few of our guests that finally starting to understand that one a little longer. It doesn't matter if you got a 10, 13, 14-point lead in second half, fourth quarter. It's just magical. I have the DirecTV, the package. I got 8 games going on. I got a house full. And it's like, if I left the office for 2.5 hours, I came back and just sat down for the fourth quarter. That's when everything starts getting going. Last Sunday, Packers lose outright to the Jets. The Bucks lose outright to Pittsburgh. The Niners lose at now the 6-0 against the spread Falcons. And I'm missing one other one. There was a fourth one. It will come to me. We officially seeing 2 things here. The changing of the guard in the NFL. Father Time has caught up to Rodgers and the Packers. The Bucks, Tom goes to Bob Kraft's wedding in the middle of the week, comes back, misses a walkthrough against Pittsburgh. Go back to 1 o'clock. You've already got all your action in. You got your team futures. Were you pulling your hair out saying, or were you just sitting back, lighting up the Red Outback cigar, knowing you could see this coming?
Well, basically, I lucked into 3-0 Sunday. And really, there was only one big play I had, which was Buffalo in the afternoon, because I was so convinced that this was an important game for them. I had the Giants against Baltimore because the Giants have had double-digit leads all 6 weeks and haven't closed the deal 3 of the time. There's something wrong with that one. And I had Atlanta against San Francisco. Basically, if I smoked a cigar, I'd be lighting it, because all my Survivor competitors are going down the tubes. And I sat there with the Rams against Carolina saying, just take care of business against a team that fired their coach and we'll be fine. Specifically with Green Bay, Rodgers just doesn't trust his receivers. and the defensive line for Green Bay is not going to do them any favors. Rodgers can't get in rhythm if he can't get on the field because the other team's getting first downs via the run game. And the other one I would mention is New England. Not New England, but Tampa. Tom Brady just misses Gronkowski. The red zone issues are real, and they're still real. I think Tampa gets their way out of it because the division is there for the taking. I haven't changed my mind that they're going to win the division, but clearly this isn't the same team when you don't have Rob Gronkowski, where Brady knows every move he's going to make in the red zone.
Buffalo, Kansas City. It's kind of funny. On Sundays, we send out what we call as an action parlay. Our week is complete. We never chase on Sundays, whether we're up 5 units, down a couple of units. We'll sprinkle in a parlay, put 2 or 3 legs to it, and then we'll mix it up where you got a 6-1, an 8-1, maybe a 10-1. Reverse sweep. So we went 0-3. So it was kind of comical. But where I'm going with this is the whole world looks at Kansas City and Buffalo, and the total was 54.5, 55, depending upon where you shop. It went under. I understand it went under. If you watch the game, all of a sudden we don't take the guaranteed 3. Buffalo 3 times could have had 3 field goals. It stays under. Buffalo wins. I have said since August, September, you're going to have to go through Buffalo this year, unlike the 2 other years. You talked about such a big game for them. What was your take from Buffalo? Josh has got the look. He is just, I think, listen, I'm nothing against Patty, nothing against some of these. Jalen Hurts is having an amazing year. I just got him, as you talk about your power rankings, he's got a little breathing area, I think, this year at his level of play.
You know, what's interesting is I came away from this game thinking that if Buffalo played KC on neutral ground 100 times, it might be 53-47 Buffalo. It would be real. They match up really well, and it's the last team that has the ball. I think they're dead even against each other. Where I think Buffalo has the edge is Kansas City will lose to some other teams. The Chargers play them well. The Raiders play them well, and so on. Buffalo has found their way against teams like New England, destroying them last year's playoffs and so on. I think Buffalo is better against other teams, but these teams make for a compelling matchup. And maybe we will see that again in the playoffs because right now, like I mentioned last week, like you indicated, Buffalo has a cushion with the power ratings, and then there's a gap, and Kansas City is still there. Kansas City and Philly would be 2-3, 3-2. Healthy San Francisco might have an argument, but they're not. But that's where I would put them right now. A compelling matchup to me. The one thing I mentioned one thing I failed to mention when I said I was 3-0 on the straights is I was also 0-2 on the over-unders, the totals. So you'd probably be wise not to ask me about totals. It's not an area that I profess to have expertise. I played them. The 2 that I played, I did because I thought there was an edge, but there wasn't.
And it's funny because I always say I am the worst at totals. I could have tomorrow's newspaper and I still couldn't pick a total. I liked the over in the Baltimore Giant game. I thought for sure Jackson would do a lot more than he actually did. And the funny thing is Barkley had the touchdown and he slid so to end the game instead of walking in, which would have gotten over. And there's 2 tickets that were purchased at the Circa by a gentleman. He ended up winning $212,000 because of that staying under. That was one of his 5 legs there. You talked about Kansas City now having to travel to the 49ers. Historically, Mahomes, after a loss, usually does pretty well. A Niners team that kind of was going through the motions. I really thought they beat up on the Panthers the week ago. They come to Atlanta. I think they took the same philosophy. We'll just find a way to win. Maybe they were peaking knowing they have Kansas City. Initial thoughts on Kansas City and the Niners?
Yeah, I haven't done a deep enough dive in this game primarily because there's no point until I see the injury report. And I'm a guy until this year that didn't really care much about injuries unless it was to a quarterback or a cluster injuries, 3 offensive linemen, 2 DBs. But this year's been a little bit crazy, and I have to pay a little bit more attention to that. And I think everybody does. So I need to wait and see what exactly the San Francisco defense is going to look like. And if they can't get to Mahomes at all, this is not a good situation for San Francisco. So, I think San Francisco is a good enough team. Jeff Wilson's a decent running back, but he's not Jeff Mitchell, who's their better running back. And there's only so many ways you can scheme Samuel if the other team has some good defensive players to bottle him up, like Buffalo did, or in this particular case, KC has enough good defensive players. I wouldn't say Atlanta had good enough defensive players, but Atlanta has a scheme that works for them offensively with a mobile quarterback. So my initial thought is that Kansas City will probably do all right in this spot, but I have to see the San Francisco injury report.
In our notes, I want to give you the stage. I want to let you run with this one. Your thoughts, if you were the coach, the Thursday night games.
Yeah, so this came to mind, and I said, okay, I know I'm going to be on with you. I've just anointed myself as a coach, and we've talked about how Thursday games shouldn't be played and this and that. And I was thinking to myself, the NBA has this load management thing that they do now, and they have to alert the league and all that other stuff. I don't follow the NBA that much, but I know if they play back-to-back games, there's players that completely sit out. If I'm the coach of a team that has to play on a Thursday, I'm going to significantly reduce the snaps for those positions that I think are the most physical in the NFL. So work with me on this one. Tight end is a physical position. Offensive line is a physical position. In some cases, workhorse running back is a physical position only because they take a lot of hits. The defensive line is a physical position, and linebacker is a physical position. If the average number of snaps is, let's say, 70 to 72 on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, let's say you have an let me not use offensive lineman first. Let me use defensive linemen that typically they may play 75% of the snaps normally. So out of 70 snaps, they may play 53, 54 snaps. I would reduce that by another 20%. That's what I think the wear and tear on the body would do. If my defensive lineman normally plays a little over 50 snaps, I have that defensive lineman play 40 snaps on Sunday before the Thursday game. Same with the linebacker, same with the tight end, same with the running back, and so on. I might have some of the safeties play about 10% fewer snaps. There's just no way in the fourth quarter of a Thursday game that you can have another 70 hits on your body. And think of these offensive linemen. I know some of this backup offensive linemen aren't that good. Depends how you drafted and stuff like that. But I definitely think that the offensive linemen who are generally going to be in there for every snap need to be in there not for 70 snaps, but need to be in there for 55 snaps. So at certain times when you're going to run certain plays, or you're doing a 2-minute drill and you have somebody who's a better pass blocker than a run blocker, then you sub these people out. I think you have to do some load management. And let me take that a step further and talk about weeks 16, 17, or game 16, 17, and then I want to hear your thoughts. There's only one playoff bye in each division, in each league now. AFC has one because of the 7-team format. NFC has one. All the other teams, the division guys get the home field first week. That may or may not be significant. Some coaches say it is, some say it's not. And the others are just in the playoffs. If you know you're securely in the playoffs after a 17-game season, survival of the fittest and so on, I'm reducing the workload. Let's say you have no chance at the number 1 seed, but you know you're in the playoffs. You're Indianapolis or Tennessee. You're going to win the division, but you're not going to get the number 1 seed. Or you're in a beat-up division like Cincinnati is and Baltimore, and you know you're not going to get the number 1 seed, but you're going to make the playoffs. I'm resting the guys game 17, and I might even play the guys 50% of the time game 16. I don't care as much about those games. I need to have that 3 or 4 game stretch in the playoffs where my team is healthier than your team. So if I'm the coach, 20% reduced snaps on a Sunday before a Thursday game and 50 to 100% reduced snaps for teams in the playoff picture, but not the number 1 seed last 2 weeks of the year.
I agree 1,000%, and I'll take it a step further. If we go back through our memory banks here, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Eli Manning, they all have won a Super Bowl by going on the whole road trip. They won all 3 games on the road, and they won the Super Bowl. When you get to that playoff spot at 16, 17, 18, as you suggested, you got no shot at the 1 seed, number 1. If you're a division winner, you're going to host.
Right.
So it does you no good. The only time that those games will come into play is a loss will mean that you're going to go on the road. But you're going to see some of these teams jockeying, hey, I'd rather go on the road and face a Dallas team versus stay at home and face the 49ers.
That's exactly what happened last year. So that's an excellent point that I hadn't, because I know some coaches say I want that home first game, but I would say it's 40-60. 60% would say we don't, and maybe more because of the points. They're looking at the schedule and they say we match up against this team. We're only going to have 1 home game. We're probably not going to have 2. If you are the clear number 2 seed, maybe if you're in a bad weather place, you want to have that. But if you're in a dome stadium, I don't know how much of an advantage is anyway, because right now home field advantage is worth about 1.25 points to begin with. So it's not that big to be at home right now. It's more important to be healthy, and it's more important to have your star players be healthy. And I think this is an unsung issue that may come a little bit more to light this year, because there's just, I don't know, it just seems like there's too many injuries this year.
And it's killing the fantasy ranks too. I had one team where you got a 10 player bench, and between buys and injuries, I had 8 out of my 10 bench guys off the board this past week. It's been hilarious. I'm going to ask you one final question, Ron. We watched another, it almost looked like a Thursday night game last night. On paper, when the season started, everyone was excited. Chargers, Denver, Russ versus Herbert. Denver has not been good this year. Russ has been putrid this year. The head coach is way over his skis. And now you look at an LA Charger team, just from the eye test. Herbert, in my eyes, was definitely hurting yesterday. I saw a lot more sidearm, almost 3-quarter throws that I'm accustomed to seeing. His coach has been on the hot seat. Give me your take on Monday's game last night. Both coaches need to go. Father Time, Russ is not Russ, and he's stole $250 million. Herbert really hurt. And what was your take?
Let's start with Denver. I was focused so much on the fact that Vic Fangio was overmatched completely in late game situations that I thought any coach would be an improvement. Without going into, I thought I was flat on Nathaniel Hackett going in. I didn't say high, I didn't say low. I just thought he went into a good situation where he's an offensive coach taking over for somebody who didn't do their job. What I should have done is a little bit more research. Paul Hackett, who used to coach at various places, including USC for a little bit of time out here, was a below average coach himself. And now you have his son, I think it's his son, taking over. And it turns out that he's not that good a coach either. And he's had to hire a time management guy and when you admit to those kinds of things after 2 or 3 games in the season, you've got a problem. So they haven't fixed their coaching, and there's not a lot of excitement in terms of confidence in the players that they have in the coaching staff. And that kind of rubs off. Denver's been competitive, make no mistake about it. Every game looks the same. 18-16, 12-9, whatever it is. But it's been a disappointment for them with a fourth place schedule to go through this. On the other side, as I've said to Chris in our shows, as I've said to other people who run some other shows and are a couple of really big LA Charger fans, if the Chargers ever fix their special team play, this would be a playoff team. And maybe yesterday was the turn the corner thing. Not only did they go 4 for 4 on field goals, but they actually recovered a muff punt. And usually when you hear muff punt in a Charger game, you think, okay, what do the Chargers do now? It was completely flipped. They won the game because of special teams. And we haven't been able to say that for years and years. I think the Chargers are well situated to make a run, even at the division, if Kansas City faltered. I mean, they play the Kansas City tough. They almost won that game in Kansas City. There were maybe a coaching decision that wasn't that good by Staley. They're right in the mix. And whatever's in the water, from Dan Fouts to Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert, the LA Chargers, if their quarterback was hit by a truck, he would still be out there and playing the next week. They just don't miss games. So whatever the organization's doing, it's right. Maybe yesterday's game is a turn the corner game for the Chargers.
Ron, the scroll has been going the whole time. They can follow you, obviously, on Twitter at Ron A Sports. And I will close by saying, again, on our website at www.eastcoastsportsinvestors.com, on our front page, if you just pause for 5 seconds, your beautiful work for the NFL breakdown of this year's schedule and this year's season. I still go through it every week. I can't thank you enough. The Tuesdays 3:30 edition, one of my favorites all week. I can't thank you enough.
Jeff, thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me articulate my thoughts out there. There's a million of them that go through my head as I watch these games. Before you know it, we're going to be in the playoffs and then the season will be over. I'm not a 5-sport guy like you. I'm a 1-sport guy. So my season is we got 6 out of 17. My season's a third over. Where did it go?
Well. And then you get to enjoy the playoffs, the Super Bowl, and then you're back to hard work getting ready for the 2023 version.
Yep, you're right about that. So pleasure to be on again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. To everyone watching and listening, we can't thank you enough. Please go follow Ron at Ron A Sports on Twitter. If you follow him, he'll follow you back. He answers questions. He's one of the good guys. And I am so glad that we have finally met. We will be back next Tuesday, same time at 3:30. Our trip out west with you, Rod. Enjoy the NFL, enjoy the college, and we will see you next weekend, sir.
Good luck, everyone.
Take care. The one and only Ron at A Sports. Great time every Thursday as we meet. Talking college football, talking NFL. One of the old school guys like myself. We both still have an AOL account. I love it. Later, I think as we speak, the MLB is going on. So please enjoy that. For myself, tomorrow morning at 11:30, Hakeem Prophet from Wager Talk will be talking NBA, props, futures, maybe some divisional talk there. At 1 o'clock, we'll be back with our weekly trip across the border with Andrew McGinnis talking CFL and NHL. In between, we'll grab some South-Eyed Riley or Scotty Webb for some closing bell action. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Ron at A Sports. Earlier on this show, Dan Alexander from Newbie Talks. Great show, guys. Thank each and every one of you. Loved having you guys on. Want you on the more the merrier here. Have a day. Enjoy the sports, and we'll see you soon.